Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you may be tuned into us, whichever way works best for you, that's definitely the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to have a live local talk radio here in the borderland, but also talk about the issues that affect us right here at home, because I've still not run into the situation where anyone else outside the region or not residing, living, dealing with the issues here. I mean, I know we got truck drivers in the audience as well. You count as well, don't worry, because those that have to deal with it, no one is ever good. No one's going to talk about the way that we do, the ones that are feeling the effects and dealing with the issues. So that's what we're tuned in for and what we're going to be dealing with, as we already have Austin Redfern joining us over on the social media Facebook there. Good afternoon to you as well as to Calvin Williams. Do appreciate it. Again, that's one of the reasons we keep mentioning the social media, is because leave your comments over there, even if it's a nice, polite greeting, and they get maybe a little less gentle later on, and not greetings anymore for that matter. But other ways, if you want to interact with the show, that's one of the best ways to do so. Throughout the program, we will have that phone line open up a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. Make no mistake, we're still focused on that, even if we have another jam-packed show for you here. Okay, I need to figure out another phrase for jam-packed. Peanut butter filled? I don't know. That doesn't quite sound right. I don't know, because I'm trying to go on a peanut butter and jelly thing. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff we're getting to today. Let's all the analogies and syllogisms aside here, as we also have a Glenn Stewart joining us. Good afternoon to you as well. Point is that big news, including that there is going to be a trial, an actual jury trial for the removal of El Paso's district attorney. El Paso's district attorney, Yvonne Rosales, Joey Carlson, asking if it's an impeachment. No, because this is going to be an entirely different process. We'll delve into that, of course, some of those details here, but and just a lot of comments about difficulties and stuff out there today. And also, of course, still focusing on our elections. 2 interviews from El Paso City Council races today. We kind of dipped our toe into District 6 by having on the incumbent, Claudia Lizette Rodriguez, last week. So following up with that, going to be having on Christian Boteo today, another candidate, challenger, I guess I should put more correctly, for District 6, as well as getting into a race where there is no incumbent, District number 1, where Peter Swarzbein is termed out. James Holmes also pointing out that some more of the other things going on, including West Side for Greg Abbott in town today. Yes, understanding. Doing an interesting appearance along with, if I'm not mistaken, some of the county officials, including County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, though I'm sure there's some other stops around there that you might be going to as well. So yeah, quite the politics-filled day. So focusing on Districts 1 and 6. In number 6, Christian Boteo, and then in District 1, Annalise Cordova Silverstein, one of the major challengers, of course, for that race, of which there is, again, no incumbent there. So a lot of people already chiming in. So we're going to have those interviews for you. Calvin Williams saying it's a dog-eat-dog world and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear. I don't know. That might work out better for you than, who was it, that Lady Gaga dress, the meat dress from a few years ago? I don't know. Your mileage may vary. And John Brazelton mentioning about, I got through reading an article on the Escobar Armendariz Jackson race for Congress, and we'll take an issue by the authors with it. They're calling it a one-sided news article. I mean, depends on how it goes. I haven't seen exactly the one you're talking about there, but I mean, there's a few factors that you can look at, whether it's actual polling, of which might be a little bit more to talk to you about on those points here. Gillian's also asking about the vote totals. Tell you what, we'll mention that at the top of next segment as well, because yes, there are more totals. We're still in early voting, and we've got more on the what has been returned so far. We're okay. I can say this confidently, as long as I'm not screwing up my math. We're gonna hit double digits. Yay! But like just barely so far. So I'm hoping we'll get like, I don't know, 20%. And John Brazelton asking, where is the Abbott interview for governor? My man, if you can get him into the studio here, any better than the attempts I have made, tell you what, I get him on the line with me. I will talk with him right now. Don't think that's exactly going to happen, but hey, we'll still talk about him and the things going on here. So again, a lot going on there. But again, wanting to get into what is going on right now, that yes, the El Paso County attorney will prosecute the case against and for the removal of El Paso's District Attorney Yvonne Rosales. Again, County Attorney Joanne Bernal accepting the case today, which will now move forward to a jury trial. So again, to the question earlier about is this going to be an impeachment? No. Again, the ways things work in Texas whenever it comes to the removal of county level officials is, well, weird is the phrase I'm going to choose to use at this point in time, because the fact that it's going to be this, without knowing exactly how it's going to play out here, definitely is somewhat more drama filled. I have to say that. If that the fact that it's going to be a jury trial for the removal of, and specifically this is based on the petition that was filed previously, and actually quoting El Paso Matters on this, on some of the things here, including the court filings that showed that El Paso County Joanne Bernal files this notice of intent to proceed and prosecute this removal action against the district attorney of the 34th Judicial District. So up next will be status hearings and things like that to determine when it will happen. And so this will be a removal by petition and trial is apparently the technical phrase there. Sean Gardner, again, Abbott's in town right now, but we're kind of like hosting the show kind of thing here. So again, okay, if you can't get him on the line with me, you got some cloning technology. We're probably a bit too late for that right now, unless it's like I split, I don't know, that we could get sci-fi on this, and there's no need to, because again, I don't think it's quite going to happen at this point. But again, what's going on with the district attorney and the office there? Of course, this petition having been filed previously, and previous guests on the show, a local defense attorney, Omar Carmona, for a couple of things, more specifically on the grounds of, I'm trying to get the, make sure to get the correct wording here for, yeah, I'll have to find the exact wording here in a minute. But based on that petition, essentially accusing misconduct in office. Okay, citing gross incompetence and misconduct for reasons for the removal. So this will come down to a jury based in, the judge is based out of Odessa. I'm not sure if the court will be, if it will be here, but there's a lot of questions that will be answered as we get to some more of the status hearings. This was essentially the deadline. To my understanding, it would have been either this being accepted or it would have gone away. Whether or not a new effort could have started would be a separate question, but yeah, there we go. Okay, Austin Redford giving me some more and synonyms for jam-packed as opposed to me trying to do peanut butter and jelly analogies. I appreciate it. And Eric McNabb saying if this turns out to be a right-wing witch hunt, then people will be disbarred or held accountable. I mean, if there is a reason that it's found, I guess, I'm not sure the terms guilty or not guilty apply in this case, or found to be removed or ruled not to be removed. I'm not sure about those things. We also have Ida Beza Gardner chiming in. Hello to you as well. Again, I got to say this is going to be maybe a bit more drama-filled than it would be through almost any other process I could imagine, honestly. I mean, a recall effort, a petition, those kind of things would be one thing, but the fact this is going to be going to a court, arguments are going to be heard, a jury will be seated on this. I mean, I really can't think of a more, maybe prolonged way to do this, frankly, but also that is going to be something that we're going to be getting regular reports on. I don't know, something we'll be watching, of course, here, as this is one of the biggest and most important elected positions, at least one of the ones that is most impactful to anyone getting in trouble or getting involved in anything related to trouble. I mean, some people don't choose to be involved with it, those kind of things, the victims, so to speak here. But any of the cases that go through the district attorney's office, or anyone who might potentially, this definitely affects you and a lot of other people in the community. And some of those big cases we've been talking about, August 3rd amongst them. So, yeah, impacting is, I guess, the core of the argument I'm trying to get at here. But that's going to take us through that first break of this hour right now. So I did not misquote you. I read your quote exactly. Because if you're going to be writing and then accusing me of misquoting you after I've read what you read, maybe write something different here. But saying that this could be a waste of time and taxpayer money if a right-wing witch hunt here. So, I mean, again, write what you want to do, and I'll read that And if you didn't write what you wanted to, that's on you. Anyway, back to that first break right now of this hour. Coming out of this break into our first interview of the day, going to be talking with, in this pre-recorded interview with, again, Christian Boteo, candidate for El Paso City Council District Number 6, again, challenging the incumbent and previous guest on the show, Claudia Lizette Rodriguez. So, got to take that break. Coming out of this break into that and a whole lot more, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Go ahead and, make some comments if you want to. There will pop up the most relevant ones during this interview, but all that and more after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Road construction on I-10 eastbound is slowing traffic from Vinton down to Artcraft with 19-minute delays on the 10 eastbound. An accident reported Paseo del Norte at Northwestern, injury accident northbound Yarborough at Alameda Avenue, and road construction has single-lane traffic on the Trans Mountain east and westbound from Gateway North to Tom Mays Access Road. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
At Affordable Dentures and Implants, that moment when we see a patient smile is everything to us. And we're proud to have helped millions of patients improve their smiles through affordable tooth replacement options. So whether it's a single tooth, full dentures, or dental implants, Affordable Dentures and Implants is here to help you. Go ahead and smile. Our new El Paso office, led by Dr. Kiso Uradiegu, is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. To schedule a free new patient consultation, call 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. That's 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. Again, our new El Paso office is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. Affordable Dentures and Implants. Go ahead and smile.
Go ahead and smile.
Sometimes life makes choices for us, so we need to make the most of the choices we do have. If you qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. This local plan offers supplemental benefits like dental, vision, OTC benefits, and much more. El Paso Health Plus also has programs designed to keep you independent and healthy. You have choices. Choose local. Choose El Paso Health Plus.
At EasyCater, food for work is our thing. Maybe that's why we get orders from 93% of Fortune 500 companies. So what's up with the other 7%?
So sorry the food is late.
You should order through EasyCater. Professionally delivered on time and as ordered.
Totally would, but the E is broken on my keyboard.
Just get IT to fix it.
Totally would. Can't type the word help.
Why don't all companies order through EasyCater? Who knows? Order 24/7 from over 95,000 restaurants on EasyCater.com. EasyCater, food for work. That's our thing.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. Live right now, coming up in that pre-recorded interview again, city council races. There are a lot of candidates. We've touched base with a couple of them here, but trying to expand some of our coverage into hopefully the most impacting parts to help y'all make your decisions. Some of the most contested races, number 1 and number 6. Already again, dip that toe into district number 6, which is kind of hugging like Joe Battle. If you ever want to see the map for yourself, epcountyvotes.com has some of that information. You can also find out, make sure you know exactly which district you're in by doing the whole, address lookup kind of thing here. And District 1 has the umpteen candidates in here. So, well, of course, delving into those here. So the vote interview coming up right now, hopefully to help you inform making your vote here, is definitely with number 6, because that's one of those kind of adjacent to, but still including vote amounts here in the county and the growth areas of the county as well, kind of adjacent to it. Yeah, either way you look at it, a lot of unique issues, but still also vote on city council on some of those big issues that we have been discussing here. So I was able to sit down and speak with, again, candidate Christian Boteo a little bit earlier in the day. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Christian Boteo, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 6. Thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely happy to do so, of course, as we are in the countdown to Election Day, just a week out as of today, and as we're recording this. So, of course, want to continue focusing on some of those races that we have begun doing some coverage of. And, of course, City Council District Number 6 is one that has, a number of candidates, and why we wanted to talk with you as one of them, of course, here. So, for those unfamiliar with the race and yourself here, introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background and qualifications and why you're running for office.
Definitely. Well, my name is Christian Boteo. I'm running for City Council District 6. Didn't think I was going to run for City Council. It wasn't until that I ran for Student Government Association at UTEP as president that I really realized that public service was my passion and the career that I wanted to pursue. So I decided to intern in Washington, D.C. Got a lot of experience there, but really missed, my wife, my family, and my city. So decided to return, get involved in a neighborhood association, got my master's in public administration, currently serve on the city board, the Public Service Selection Board Committee, and made a little impact through my neighborhood association, working on a walking trail, my nearby park, and ready to make an impact on a larger scale. I think that I can bring a lot of new ideas, new energy on city council to not just improve my district, but also improve the city as a whole.
Of course, District 6 is an interesting one now. Of course, all boundaries and lines in this way have shifted a bit with the recent redistricting, with the census results and kind of things. And so District 6 now sits essentially more or less, correct me if I'm wrong here, right inside Loop 375, Joe Battle there, but right next to District 5, that kind of what I call the Zaragoza triangle there between Joe Battle, Zaragoza, and Montana, which has been one of the biggest growth areas there. So District 6 has kind of shifted east a bit there because of it. So with those issues in there, what are some of the big things and big issues you see for the district?
Knocking on over 10,000 doors, people are very frustrated with our streets. Our infrastructure has been neglected for decades. And, there's people that drive, on these streets. Car parts are falling out of their car, and they have to get repairs, because they're getting it damaged. And really, the biggest thing that everyone's talking about in District 6 is the streets. Mostly Pebble Hills, South Kleinfield, our main streets like Pelicano, George Jeter, Rojas, but also residential streets that haven't been paved in over more than 40 years. So definitely, I think that that's a priority for District 6 that I would take on and really try to focus on that. The second thing is obviously property taxes. Not just in District 6, but over across the whole city, we see that a lot of people are seeing a rise in their property taxes, and it can be very frustrating. I hear people talk about that they're not able to retire because they need to pay their property taxes right when they're about to turn 65. And so, definitely, I think it's important that the city needs to be as lean as possible. Try to focus on property tax relief. And also, thirdly, I think that I would say another two things that I think are just as important is improving our public safety. When you compare our staffing numbers to today and 20 years ago, they're roughly the same number. And so our city has grown, including the east side, over the past 20 years, and we need to make sure that we're reaching the appropriate numbers, our staffing numbers for our police. And fourth, we have nice parks and rec centers. But when I talk to people, they want to see more amenities. There's some parks that don't have shade in the playground equipment. Their equipment hasn't been replaced. Now people really are into walking trails and So I think definitely those are the 4 things that I would really like to focus on.
Absolutely here. So particularly on the better and safer streets as you have over on your website, Boteo for district6.com here, mentioning repairing and maintaining commercial and residential street, install more traffic control devices to slow down traffic as well. Particularly on that point there, traffic control devices. There's been a couple of ways that come to mind the way the city has been doing that, whether it be the roundabouts that have been popping up in a few different places all around town, or whether it be the kind of curb narrowing, where when it particularly comes to intersections, they'll essentially draw the curb more out towards the actual traffic lane and not just over on the shoulder here. Were those kind of things what you had in mind, or what specific things were you wanting to see for traffic control?
Yeah, no, I think good thing you brought that up. Speeding is also an issue in District 6. I hear stories of people, their mailboxes being knocked over. People's cars crashing into houses. So what I really had in mind was definitely speed bumps. I think seems to be a thing that people are very susceptible to, that they're interested in. A lot of the medians that we see or the roundabouts, based on me talking to residents, there's not a lot of people that are big fans of those type of traffic devices. So I think that community driven. A petition. There's a program that's called the Traffic Management Program that residents are able to go around, collect signatures for a petition, and ultimately submit it to the city so they can get speed bumps or another traffic devices. So really would look forward to trying to put more money into those programs that are driven by residents.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Christian Boteo, candidate for El Paso City Council, District number 6. Want to find out more information about him or what we're talking about here, including his platform, Boteo for district6.com. That's BOTELLOFOR, District number 6, the number 6.com. Of course, talking about the roads and the improvements to it, one of the big issues up right now is, of course, the bond that is also on this ballot right now. That roughly, let's just call it $250 million. It's technically 240 and change, but that roughly 250 million, the lion's share of the entire bond amount there. So what is your perspective on that bond and what could be accomplished with it? Are you in favor of it or opposed to it?
Definitely. So, I think that just like what I mentioned, people are very frustrated with the property taxes, the rise that they've seen. And definitely the bond would definitely would have to pay it back in the future. I think it's not the ideal way. I know that people are already frustrated with the property taxes as they are, but I do believe that this is the only way that we can do the streets that I talked about, all those streets, including residential and George Dieter, Pebble Hills, in order to get them done quickly. I think that if the bond is not passed, the second thing that we can do that I would advocate for is making sure that we set aside funds every fiscal year. The city started doing that these past 2 years, but it's still not to the levels that we need to. We know that it costs $50 million every year to continuously maintain our streets. So I think that the voters should consider voting for the bond. I think that definitely that's the fastest way, and it's not the most ideal way, but that's my perspective on the bond.
Particularly then on the public safety part as well. I know that staffing levels they're referring to essentially public safety, whether it be fire, police, EMS, etc. That you were concerned about the staffing levels and comparing there were those specific types of departments.
Yes.
So, of course, one conversation that has been going on for years now and has now recently started becoming addressed was of putting even further regional command centers for police further out. I mean, there's the Pebble Hills one, but I mean it's pretty far not east on Pebble Hills there, and Pebble Hills extends quite a lot further. So there's now been movement on putting, further fire stations and now a further kind of like far east regional command center out that area. But staffing levels you mentioned there as well have been, I mean, there's, somewhere an estimate between, 1,000, 1,400, police officers specifically for the city of El Paso. And that estimates put it nearing to need to be not quite double the lower amount, but significant hundreds more is the order that has been discussed here. When you're talking about the staffing level, then what are some of the priorities or what do you think needs to be done specifically?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you mentioned the East Side Regional Command. We don't have enough officers to even staff that one. And with a budget that we need to be lean, we have to make sure that when it opens and that it's servicing people, we're gonna make sure that we're able to fill those in. talk about future, even further east or even within District 6. I think those talks are like very preliminary. I think that we got to focus on the East Side Regional Command. That's not going to just only benefit District 5, but also benefit District 6. And not only that, but I think that another discussion too that hasn't been brought up is the service areas. I think I ran into somebody who lives in the Paseos on the other side of George Jeter. I mean Joe Battle, and they mentioned that the city of El Paso doesn't service them, but they're in District 6. They're like in this limbo between the school district and the county. So definitely we need to make sure that our service is expanded, and really focus on the East Side Regional Command that's going to open up and staffing that one first before even talk of another command center.
Of course, also then enhancing parks and recreation center are some of the issues there, besides kind of, shade and structures like that, has been on their availability, their openness, their ability to be staffed in that way. So kind of staffing in a different sense here. So from your perspective then on what needs to be done there, you mentioned some shade structure, fixing up equipment, those kind of things then. So what needs to be done to make sure that they can be even available to everyone?
Definitely. Well, I think we have to make sure that our parks and our rec centers are all inclusive. There's been a push for the city to put more, all inclusive, equipment for people with disabilities. I think those are things that some of the East Side parks don't have. So definitely would try to advocate for equipment that's more accessible to everyone. But I think that through my experience being in the advocating for the walking trail I mentioned. It was part of a neighborhood improvement program by the city, and that gave really the opportunity for people to submit their ideas to improve their parks, to improve their rec centers. So really, I think that I'm for the community-driven approach. I think that people have a lot of great ideas, not only just to enhance our parks, but make them all inclusive. So definitely putting money into those programs so that people can submit their ideas and make those things happen.
And then, of course, finally, your last proposition is you put up there not the last one you said, but the last one to address here, the property tax relief. Of course, everything else we've talked about here has price tags with it, both, when it comes to streets, staffing, parks and recs, amenities, those kind of things here. So when it comes to then making those work with property tax relief is essentially what would give at that point, because to add somewhere else, I mean, city council has for the last couple of years either adopted a no new tax increase or a revenue neutral stance. But when it comes to therefore trying to actually lower both of those, not just to keep it the same, but actually relieving from it there, how do you reconcile the idea of expanded and more things in certain areas while then still trying to tax less?
Yeah, well, definitely other candidates and other candidates will say, we'll freeze the taxes, we'll lower the tax rate. But then you see the city adopting a rate that's lower, but you're going to see the property taxes increase because the value that basically didn't offset the value of the home of the home increases. So I really don't think that that's genuine. I really don't think that it will happen, especially that we were trying to maintain high quality services as a city. So the way I reconcile this and what I would propose and been telling people is that the way we need to provide property tax relief is by trying to attract companies, which we've seen a trend of companies coming here, so that we can expand the tax base, create new revenue. And one thing I mentioned is that here in El Paso we're at a 60% residential tax base, 40% commercial. I've seen some estimates too that are closer to 70% residential. So all that burden is on residential properties. But when you look at other cities like Dallas, Austin, you see the inverse. It's the opposite. You have more burden on the commercial properties, less burden on the residential. So I really do think that that's the problem here in El Paso. I think that we have to really focus on the economic development efforts to expand the tax base. Really, try to look for ways to expand to increase our sales tax. Working with our partners in Juarez, who a lot of shoppers come from Juarez to El Paso to come and shop here. So definitely those are the efforts that I believe in. But I think that you can't keep high quality services or do these programs without and lower the tax rate or freezing tax rates the way they are.
Again, guest right now has been Christian Botello, candidate for El Paso City Council District number 6. You want to find out any more about him, the policies, and all the details that we've been talking about here. Botello for district6.com. That's BOTELLOFOR, district number 6.com. Also find him similarly on Facebook and Instagram. So, Christian, thank you very much for coming in today to talk to us about some of your campaign background and policies if elected to office here today.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the chance to talk to your listeners.
Again, thanks to Christian. Got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, getting into another candidate from a different race. That was District 6, getting into District 1 coming after this with one of the candidates, Annalisa Cordova Silverstein. So got to take that break. Comments we've been popping up here. We'll mention a few more and keep doing that as they relate to the interview themselves here. Other conversations can, of course, continue on. We'll keep delving into those, but all that and more to come after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The twin brothers accused of shooting and killing a Mexican migrant near Sierra Blanca have both bonded out of jail. According to the Hudspeth County Sheriff's Department, Michael and Mark Shepard posted their bail yesterday. The twin brothers allegedly opened fire on a group of migrants in Sierra Blanca on September 27th. The Shepards claimed to have thought they were shooting at wild hogs. One migrant died, another was wounded. The Shepards are charged with manslaughter. A man dressed in a Spider-Man costume climbed a high-rise in central El Paso. The video was recorded yesterday from the point of view of the man climbing the tower, the Chelsea Tower, which is owned by the Housing Authority of El Paso. Footage of yesterday's stunt was posted onto YouTube. El Paso police say that up to now, no reports have been filed. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the north end of the valley, I-10 eastbound between Vinton and Artcraft is slow because of road construction. 25-minute delays there. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, stalled truck is blocking the right shoulder. An accident reported Paseo del Norte at Northwestern, and an injury accident northbound Yarborough at Alameda. Try North Loop Drive or Midway as your alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've seen another beautiful day again, but as we get into tonight, we will have another similar night to last night with temperatures dropping back to the 40s near 50 with light winds. As for your Wednesday, we start to transition, so we'll see a little more wind, but we're staying dry and warm. It's really not until Thursday and Friday when we'll see some bigger changes with our Pacific storm. Log on to KFOX.com for the latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Halloween is over, but hiring is still scary. Indeed's end-to-end solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and instantly receive a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
New on Curiosity Stream, Darwin's Theory of Evolution, a scientific breakthrough, but 1920s Tennessee wasn't ready for it.
It became the Bible versus evolution.
Followed a heated trial that changed American education forever on Monkey in the Middle. And it's the country's deadliest highway.
There was something like 178 accidents in a 2-year period.
Don't miss the most dangerous road in America. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Staples is a one-stop destination for shipping supplies like boxes, mailers, and packing filler to services like UPS Shipping. And right now, get 25% off UPS Express shipping services at Staples. Offer valid in U.S. Staples stores through 12/31. Staples, the best kept secret in shipping. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot of ways to chime in on the show. Phone lines open a little bit later, probably towards the top of the next hour, as we're going to squeeze in one more interview this hour that we keep going little bit longer than I intend to, but got to get that information for you all. One thing I wanted to bring up here is we have a lot of people chiming in, and including Kevin Williams, Robbie Flores, Eric McNabb, Sean Gardner, Richard Janasik. Dropping those election reacts, also Glenn Stewart, Barbara Given-Baney, Alex Campos, Ida Beza Gardner, Robert Haynes, Flaco Jimenez, Glenn Stewart, Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, I feel like I'm repeating some of these things, James Holmes, Anjo Ruedo, Richard Janasik, and more. And a lot of stuff going on there. But I've mentioned polling a couple of times on and off and how we don't really have that kind of thing. So got a very interesting text earlier this week, or late last week, I guess would be more technically accurate here, basically asking me, hey, thanks for voting. Yeah, it was definitely early this week then because I voted on Saturday, saying, thank you for voting. Would you like to respond with who you voted for City Council District 1? That's the district I live in. And I was mildly floored because it wasn't your standard, hey, will you please donate to campaign? A million texts have gotten that way. And it was for organization Fair Data indicated in the text here. Just asking me to respond. So I reached out to the organization, wanted to learn about more. So they are doing kind of proof of concept, non-scientific polling, trying to see if it can be viable in the area. So they say it's based on which district you live in, based on the public data. Yes, the fact that you vote is public data. If you ever wonder why you get all the campaign mailers and maybe your neighbors don't, it's because you're the one voting out there. And that is a public record. What you voted for is not, which is why they were asking in this case. So they reach out based on district and cell phone number availability. If they've got both of those pieces of data, they will go ahead and use their system and reach out to you here. They say so far they've gotten on the order of low hundreds of those in each race, so it doesn't qualify as scientific yet, but hoping we can find out more about them and, well, what's going on there, and if we might actually have polling available even for select races in our area. So got to go and take that next interview right now. Again, dipping now into City Council District Number 1, speaking here with Annalisa Cordova Silverstein on her perspective on some of the important things coming up for this office. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Annalisa Cordova Silverstein, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for calling and inviting me here today. And thank you so much for your listeners who are tuned in and being civically engaged and keeping up with the issues.
We hope so anyway, and hope we get more people out to the polls here. So, of course, continuing our election coverage and talking more about the city council races as we are this week. District 1 is a very important and very populated election this time around. So for those people who may be unfamiliar with yourself or this race, introduce yourself a little bit, some of your background, the qualifications you feel you bring, and why you're running for office.
I'm Annalisa Cordova Silverstein. I'm a fourth-generation El Pasoan. I am a businesswoman, and I graduated from Loretto Academy from high school. Everybody asks, where'd you go to high school in El Paso?
Of course.
And then I went to UTEP. I graduated from the College of Business and got a marketing degree there. And I graduated in about 2008 from there. I was very involved in the student government, fought for a SARCO. As a SGA VP, we lowered tuition, actually, or had a tuition cap. So that was something I did in college. After college, I worked my way from intern to chief of staff for State Senator Elliott Shapley. I was a legislative staffer, for about 6 years. So I saw everything that went on in the office, and we took on all the big issues. And my job specifically for a while was helping the constituents with any issues that they came in and they had. And I was the person to serve them and help them navigate their way through state government. So I feel that gave me a lot of experience on how to do this job as a public servant. Mm-hmm. I also worked for 2 different nonprofits. One was El Paso Zoological Society. The other was Loretto Academy. I was the development director of both of them and helped raise hundreds and thousands of dollars for the community. And I saw, especially when I was at the El Paso Zoological Society, how private and funding and grants help offset tax dollars for our different quality of life services. And the last 6 years, I've been working at Hello Amigo, a creative communications agency, as a project manager. So I help manage our projects start to finish within budget, manage over 100 clients, and customer service is key. And I want to bring some of those qualities as the city council representative to District 1.
So, of course, District 1 is one of those kind of outskirts, not central districts. It's the most north and western one, even though I'm still getting used to the phrase northwest as we are. And, of course, had some redistricting that happened with it. So there may be people that were in it previously that aren't in it now. Again, look at those, epcountyvotes.com. You can find the voting map. But that is because there has been the growth in this region, kind of the northeast to an extent, northwest. Now, again, still getting used to that phrase, and far east are some of the biggest growth areas of the county and of the city that is within those parts of it here. So there's a lot of changes and a lot of still I can see more or less from the backyard where I've just moved further up into District 1 now that there's still a lot of growth happening kind of to the north, essentially. So given the fact that we're dealing with, it's often been a focus for the east side for many years on growth and services, all those kind of things. But we're now starting to see that getting into for the Northwest. What are some of the big issues that you see for, those kind of circumstances for the district, but also some of the other big issues affecting the district specifically?
Sure. So I've been block walking since April and have been talking to over 20,000 residents by now. And I've gone into the different neighborhoods and seen which issues are affecting them a lot. With these new neighborhoods, let's say it's Enchanted Springs, which is off of 375, and it's probably the most west neighborhood of the district. They only have one inlet and one outlet to get into their neighborhood. So that's a safety concern for them because, if there's emergencies and there's traffic, the emergency vehicle couldn't get through. They would have to, wait for that traffic to go through. So that's traffic infrastructure that we need to look into there. Also, on the Upper Valley side, we have Frontera Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been talking with those residents and helping them organize and go and speak on, about this issue at council. And what's happening there is there's a Sunland Park development right in their backyard. And there's only one inlet to get there, and it's Frontera Road. It's the El Paso Road to get to a Sunland Park development,
right,
which is going to add about 500 additional cars to their already clogged up street. So that's another safety concern there. So the expansion is great. We just need to make sure that we implement these safety traffic infrastructure into this. One other thing that may be reintroduced is the Red Road expansion, and that's going to help the Valley residents on the left side of the valley. Because right now it gets really clogged on Country Club, on Montoya. And so we need to really work on that traffic infrastructure with all the new developments happening.
Again, if you're just joining us, the guest right now is Annalisa Cordova Silverstein, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1. You find out anything more about her, some of the policies and platform we are discussing here. You can find her, Annalisa, for district1.com. That's ANALISAFOR, district number 1.com. And specifically, if we're talking about some of the things on the platforms here, I think this would maybe go kind of along the lines with your safer neighborhoods platform thing, though you also go into there, of course, about, essentially public safety, fire and police there. And particularly when it comes to that, so beyond just the roads, what are some of the things that are needing to be done, particularly for this district when it comes to, again, public servants, public safety, those kind of staffing?
So the 2019 public safety bond that was passed, we need to make sure it gets fully funded because they're going to build a new command center and they're currently building a new fire station, which is going to be close to the hospitals of Providence out in the Northwest.
Driven by,
so that is going to help with our response times. We also need to hire and retain more police officers. And I want to advocate to hire more women police officers because studies have shown that women feel more comfortable talking to a woman after domestic violence disturbance. And we do have high domestic violence within our community here.
Okay, some of the other platform positions want to make sure we get to here, of course, are economic development. Now, of course, District 1 is a little bit different, though. You mentioned the hospitals of Providence there. That's if you're looking, say, from I-10 up Trans Mountain Road on the, again, northwest side. It's kind of this Lone Ranger out there by itself currently, but a lot of open and ready to be developed space out there. So, of course, we've seen a lot of expansion with things like in previous guests on the show, such as, Electric, Schneider Electric, other development, the entire, a Westtown Marketplace and those kind of areas. So specifically for District 1, then, what kind of economic development are you focusing on?
Well, some of the things that we need to make sure we do is support our local businesses. We need to see the city just promote local a lot more, not only to tourists, but to our own residents. And something that I love that has happened is the Cimarron development is
Mhm.
built in what they would say like a smart code mixed development,
Okay.
where it's close to a neighborhood, close to apartments, and you can walk and you can go to, a brewery, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to your yoga or cycling class. They all have it there within the neighborhood. And that is something that is how we have to think about how our developers are thinking about our neighborhoods when they are doing new developments. So, not only just big, large companies that we do want to recruit to offset our
Mhm.
tax dollars, but also promote our local businesses. Especially after COVID, we saw more than ever how essential our local businesses are to our residents.
It's interesting that you mentioned the idea of smart growth and that things that can be seen in some places. Cimarron, you mentioned, or Montecillo, that area is another example of it. One of the things that has not come up terrifically recently, but used to be an issue, was the idea of that Northwest Master Plan, because there are some things and some circumstances where a lot of that land I was just discussing and mentioning there, kind of on either side of Trans Mountain there and around the hospitals of Providence, there's city interest in it, city ownership through like a PSB or things like that. So when it comes to implementing that or seeing that actually done in kind of the, again, growing portions of the district, how would you, again, if elected office, would you want to see that guided or moved through?
So when I worked for State Senator Elliott Shapley it's been more than 10 years now. Something we worked on was this tax stop plan that was a mountain to river cycling and walking path.
Mhm.
And so it's about still getting finished, and we did this cool event called the Rattler Outdoor Challenge, and people ran on the mountain like a 5K, then they got on their
Mhm.
bikes, and then they cycled down to the river, and then they finished canoeing, and I was the organizer and creator of that
Mhm.
event. Um, but it's been a little disappointing, I will say, that, 10 years later, the trails are getting finished, but the park at the bottom of the trail in the valley still needs a lot of attention.
Hmm.
And so when elected, I want to make sure that we're updating these parks so that we do have a true like mountain to river park trail infrastructure, because I mean, not only does it give a lot of incentive for why you wanna live in the Northwest, but it also is wonderful for ecotourism.
Of course, definitely related to another one of your platform position there of parks and open space. Interesting, particular vision you put there. But of course, one of the things at the top of your list there is then on taxes and of course on maintaining them. I mean, as you kind of mentioned there as well, the industrial or commercial versus residential tax base is often a common point here. So if elected, what would be your focus on taxes and the budget specifically?
So I want to make sure that we're spending our tax dollars as efficiently as possible, and that we're reviewing the budget and making sure we're not being wasteful or duplicating any services that other government entities are doing. So specifically, I will say after talking with residents, they want to see their tax dollars in District 1. So I want to advocate and fight that we're getting our fair share of tax dollars going to District 1, fixing our traffic infrastructure, updating our streets, seeing more of the safety initiatives in the neighborhoods. And I mean, I know this sounds kind of basic, but some of our parks just need grass. And I've seen almost every single park in the district, and it's like, yeah, man, the basic needs of the city is what we need to focus on when talking about our tax dollars.
Of course, a couple of specific tax things going on. You mentioned the 2019 public safety bond, but of course, there is another one that will be alongside on this coming ballot from the city. Of course, they do have this upcoming one that is primarily focused on streets, kind of what you mentioned there, but more on street maintenance than it is on modifying streets. So, not exactly along the lines of what you were saying there, but certainly related. So, what is your perspective on those bonds? Those, again, three propositions of it, the lion's share, vast majority being towards streets, but then also towards things like, well, closer to some of your other priorities, such as, parks and related. But then also, of course, there's the sustainability aspects of you. What are your perspective on those bonds?
Well, something that the listeners should know is that each of these propositions are separate.
Correct.
So you can vote on each one of these. You can vote for two of them. You can vote for one of them. However you feel, you should vote on it. Vote on it, and that's what I'm encouraging voters to do. I know that if they pass, great, because it's designated funds that will go to these specific projects, which the city actually did a survey, and they did it prior to presenting these propositions to say, hey, where do you want the money to go to? And these are the top three priorities. So I really like that they got the public voice in presenting those propositions. Something that is an opportunity to offset some of these tax dollars is applying for community grants. We can do that. I mean, that's kind of like free money, right? And we can also go in on it with different nonprofits. I've looked at different grants that are available. So they do have some for improving parks, for environmental services. Any department, we need to start looking for these opportunities to offset the tax dollars. So it's not everything coming just from our tax dollars.
Final question we're going to be able to squeeze in here right now. So over on the overall budget then, and as it comes to the tax rate, separate, of course, from the bonds that have their own tax rate that will be built into them if passed here. Of course, City Council has taken a couple of steps in recent years for either the keeping the tax rate flat or reducing the rate, though, given that there have been the aspects of rising property values that has still resulted in increased taxes for some of the area. What would be your focus, particularly on the tax rate, again, if elected to office?
We need to work with our city comptroller and make sure that we are doing the most we can within our city budget, and that we are making living in El Paso as affordable as we can for our residents, with still providing services that's important, such as like keeping our libraries open or our rec centers. Our rec centers really do give our kids somewhere to go after school and keeping them off the streets. They recently reopened the Don Haskin Rec Center on the west side, which I was really happy to see. And they were able to open the library on Saturdays again. And these are services we need for our families. I mean, they do wonderful programming like reading on Saturday mornings for kids and arts and crafts. And then these are the types of things we need to provide back to our tax dollars, because it provides a wonderful quality of life for our residents.
Again, guest right now has been Annalisa Cordova Silverstein, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1. Again, any of the details about what we've been talking about, her platform positions, and further information, Annalisa for district1.com. That's ANALISAFOR, district1.com. So, Annalisa, thank you very much for talking and coming by to talk about all of the issues involved with this race, your campaign, and the issues surrounding it here today.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and I hope everybody gets out there and votes.
The man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband is pleading not guilty to attempted murder and other charges. David DePape appeared in a San Francisco court Tuesday. His attorney, public defender Adam Lipson, said he has received little information on the case so far and has yet to see the police report related to the attack. Denver police say one person is dead and at least 4 others were taken to a hospital after a shooting on Tuesday. It appears the shooting happened outside. Authorities are still looking for the suspect. The search is on for the person who shot 2 cops in Newark, New Jersey earlier this afternoon. These residents are scared.
It's scary. It's really scary. This is crazy.
Authorities say one officer was shot in the leg and the other was shot in the neck, but both are expected to survive. Officers were trying to execute a warrant when the gunman started firing a long gun, most likely from an apartment window or the rooftop of a residential building. The Supreme Court is declining to block a subpoena for Senator Lindsey Graham in a Georgia prosecutor's probe in alleged interference during the 2020 presidential election. Lisa Taylor reports.
Atlanta Area District Attorney Fonnie Willis is investigating phone calls Graham made to Georgia election officials when former President Trump was contesting the results of the election. Graham can now be subpoenaed thanks to the Supreme Court's block, but he could also use the Fifth Amendment to avoid self-incrimination. The South Carolina senator claims he made the alleged calls as part of his duties leading up to Congress's vote to certify the election results. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A group of Democrats is questioning the Federal Reserve's campaign to slow inflation through interest rate hikes. Close to a dozen progressive lawmakers, including Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, called on Fed Chair Jerome Powell to slow interest rate increases. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bank. That's bank. Enter it now.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
Politicians have led us down the wrong path. Record inflation and cost of living, unsafe border communities, a war on oil and gas jobs. Enough is enough. Catherine Parker will uphold our Texas values. A successful businesswoman and rancher, Catherine Parker will lower inflation and our cost of living. Catherine Parker will work to permanently lower your property taxes. Catherine Parker will stand up to the radicals who threaten our values and put our families in harm's way. Catherine Parker will secure our border communities and fully fund border security. Catherine Parker will stand with law enforcement and against those who want to defund our police, because our communities deserve to be safe. And Catherine Parker will defend the oil and gas jobs that power our communities. Truth, freedom, prosperity. Vote Catherine Parker for District 74 on November 8th. Political ad paid for by Catherine Parker Campaign.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
It's the giving season, and only the free iHeartRadio app gives you the live radio, music, and podcasts you love, all for free. Did you get that? You pay absolutely nothing to listen to your favorite radio stations anywhere, anytime on the iHeartRadio app. And you know what else? Sharing is caring. And with one tap, you can share what you're listening to with anyone, so they can listen for free too.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Download the free iHeartRadio app for all of your music, radio, and podcasts.
iHeartRadio.
Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Not the smoothest transition from the end of last hour, I will admit here. Things sometimes work out, sometimes they don't, and this is one of those times. But still appreciate the interview and think we got most of the substantive points in, just her encouraging everyone to go out and to vote. A little bit caught in the traffic there. But back on here and back in talking about the things that are important to us here in the community. And thing I was meaning to mention at the end of that segment is that the phone lines now open here. If you want to get on the line and add your 2 cents, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you're calling in the middle of a segment, you might get put on hold and might get popped up live, so just stay on that line there for us. A lot of people chiming in and commenting on the situation and what we are discussing here, among other things. Dropping those likes and reacts, let's just put it that way. We do have Barbara Given Bainey, Calvin Williams, Stephen Christopher, Alex Campos, Ida Beza Gardner, Robert Haynes, Glenn Stewart, Robbie Flores, James Holmes, Richard Jenisic, Monica Cervantes, and Angel Rueda, if that's still the way you like to do it. And at least a lot of comments coming in about, again, city council candidates, as we are talking about today. Again, thanks to our guest from the previous hour of Christian Boteo, candidate for the number 6 city council district, as well as Annalisa Cordova Silverstein, candidate for city council district number 1, representing the more or less the extremes of the city of El Paso, either northwest and the furthest north and west you can get in El Paso, or the not quite all the way furthest east you can get in El Paso, but, well, District 6 is as close as you can get. It's essentially a strip that kind of follows along Joe Battle and Loop 375, but not quite that, what I still refer to kind of as the Zaragoza corner or corridor, or, it's not really the corridor, but the Zaragoza triangle, where it's kind of bounded by Zaragoza, Joe Battle, and Montana, which has been one of the biggest growth areas happening in town here, as apparently Calvin Williams has a stated invested interest in, saying District 5 rules here. Definitely a lot of growth happening out that way. I remember when that used to be nothing. I just made myself feel ancient as I said that here, because I grew up to people telling me about that all the time here. Oh, I've become that which I feared to be. Anyway, yes, it's a very much growing district and a whole lot going on out there, and why it's one of the interesting ones, but not all of the districts, of course, are on the ballot this time around. So focusing on a couple of them, because just city council alone, there are 16 candidates going in here. And no, we're not going to try to cram all of that. We're kind of focusing on the professional way to put that, districts 1 and 6 this time around. But again, some interesting things going on and around. There might be a nascent polling effort, like I mentioned last time around, hoping to find out more about that. But some other comments, including from Louis Pinato, not quite on board with the idea of more public spending, saying it's the nature of the government beast, more. That's why we're losing population. That's not technically correct, though. El Paso is still increasing in population. The fact of the matter is, it's kind of like okay, we're not exactly older kid here, but imagine if you were, you had like a cousin that was more or less the same height as you, and suddenly they grew a foot when you grew like 6 inches over a summer. Yeah, that would even be cause for concern. I'll agree, but still, like, it's not that you didn't grow; it's just that you have been widely overshadowed by those that are. I've been accused of being old enough as well. They didn't have numbers as I was, but yeah, it's just not as fast as others. So that's kind of the problem and why we lost, well, some state representation. I mean, we still have district, I believe it's 74, if I'm not mistaken, for the state house, but it's been largely district out. So it's a lot further. It's kind of more similar to what the Texas 23rd congressional districts are and is now. So, I mean, a lot more commentary on the idea and potentials are for these. James Radcliffe saying that when the previous candidate mentioned Elliot Shapley, that said it all. Say no. Okay, it's interesting your opinion there. And Stephen Christopher on the idea of the bonds and thing. This is definitely where I'm leaning. Paying almost double for the same groceries makes me less likely to give the government more money. It's an interesting position there. And Roger D. Cleops asking who was this person we had on air. And again, these are the candidates. So if you're wondering if we have just some rando, we sometimes do just interesting interviews. But yeah, we're focused on the people who are literally on the ballot right now. So you're going to get the chance to, well, make your voice heard that way. So at least one street sign like marquee sign the way and saying it's your voice, use it, vote, which I handily and heartily agree with there. More again, the reasoning going on with some of the different districts, neighborhoods. Maria Coleman with an interesting comment. Chlorophyll 185 or just 85, not sure, saying not liking bike lanes, saying add more bike lanes on the roof, Dad. That sounds like a good idea there, or maybe not. And some more commentary on that. So that's, again, one of the better things that you can do. And Flaco Jimenez jeering me about Northwest. Absolutely. And Chlorophyll also making another point about it doesn't do any good to bring businesses in and give them 10 years of tax breaks. That has been one of the, I can't really remember a sizable effort of any real notability anyway that has come in that has not had some kind of either public-private partnership or public incentive package in order to bring them here. And I guess my perspective on it is this, that yes, at a certain point you want to build things up in the private sector to be enough of a juggernaut, so to speak, that the force drives itself and things will just keep rolling and people want to be here because it's a good place to be, those kind of things. But in the meantime, we are, of course, competing with other areas, with bigger areas that may have more prosperity currently. So is it enough to just say, like, well, we didn't win this one, we'll just wait for someone to come along and do it? Or, I mean, the role of government is always something that is up for debate and is kind of reaffirmed or incentivized every time we go to the ballot box. But I think that if it can be done without public expenditures, because sure, tax breaks may lessen what comes into the coffers, but if it's not being something done by actually like saying, okay, we will just give you a chunk of change, rather this is money that they are not taking is what it comes down to, and that makes the difference. Yeah, I kind of find myself in favor of it, but it's always going to be on a kind of a case-by-case basis here. Kevin was saying, I voted early, now I have to go vote again so I can say I voted often. There will, again, I kind of expect there'll be a runoff, so if you are, maybe not for District 5 there, so you may be out of luck, but, well, there are some crowded enough races that it's entirely possible, so vote in the next election, and that counts as voting often anyway. But we do have phone calls on the line here as well. Again, if you want to add your 2 cents that way, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Now let's jump in the first one here. We got on the line. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Joe from the West Side. How are you doing, Andrew?
Doing right there, Joe. What's on your mind?
What happened to Freddie Avalos? I just read, just Googled him. I read that he resigned.
He did.
Some hidden scandal you are not reporting, or what's the real reason?
Well, that's honestly, there's not much more detail coming out about it than that. The way he cited is that for personal reasons that he both dropped out of the race. He was one of the candidates for City Council District Number 1, and he will actually still be appearing on the ballot because he announced that kind of past the cutoffs for those being put in or not. But no other information he has been providing, and don't think I've seen anything else there, and I'm not inclined to speculate on this one. But he did end up resigning from his EPISD board position as well, so we're kind of removing himself from public life from the moment is the most we can say for now.
That means something bad must have happened that he's trying to keep under cover. But who's the most conservative candidate in my district, which is Freddie's district?
District Number 1, would be the one he is in. So if you want to call him the most conservative, I mean, that's a judgment you're welcome to make here. Just as a reminder, City Council is technically nonpartisan, meaning that they are not allowed to declare themselves.
Sound-wise, who would you
Fair
consider to be the most conservative person?
Well, he may have been, but again, no longer on the ballot there, I guess, unfortunately, for your perspective.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point on the call. Do appreciate it. I mean, these have been one of the upheavals and why there were 17 candidates by that count before he announced his no longer intention to move forward. I guarantee that he's going to get a couple of votes at least, just because any time that there is someone on the ballot, someone ends. I would be floored if there were end up being no votes going his way, though. Just remember, that's just you're literally throwing your vote away because he is no longer seeking that position anyway. And Kelvin Williams letting us know that restaurant where we met up one time was closed because of lockdown, and it was the second one of 2 to do so. Jeez. James Radcliffe asking, are there any candidates that are not supporting these bonds? I mean, we'll keep asking that question. Not really sure that's it's not part of much of the platforms people are putting out there. I want to look further and delve further into some of the candidate questionnaires that have gone out. That might be the better place to look for that. None coming to top of mind, but, well, we got more time to talk about these issues. In any case, we got to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll be coming back with more talk, more of your calls, comments, and everything. Some of the previous comments that we weren't able to get to that you all were making over on the social media. So, of course, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number to call if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway eastbound at Reynolds, that crash is blocking the right lane. Some delays there. I-10 eastbound between Vinton and Artcraft, you've got a 27-minute delay due to road work. I-10 eastbound at Prospect downtown, a stalled trucks blocking the left shoulder. And an earlier injury accident in Yarborough, northbound at Edgemere Boulevard, still slowing traffic. Try Pebble Hills or Lee Trevino. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News Radio 690 KTSM and Scott Heating and Cooling want to provide a local veteran with a heating and cooling system upgrade. Tell us about a deserving veteran you know who would benefit from a free new refrigerated AC unit. Who are they? How have they positively impacted you, their families, and the community? Nominate a veteran you know today at ktsmradio.com.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag. Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. Includes choice of double stack JBC or crispy chicken BLT with 4-piece nugs, small drink, and fries. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like,
Building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Education doesn't just take place in the classroom. There are many ways for children of all ages to learn about sustainability and environmental education at home. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Earth for a list of resources, activity guides, and toolkits that are educational and fun for the whole family. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like,
Rewire the hull?
They're firing, Paul.
wait, what did I do? Or even,
Install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text HUNK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text HUNK to 42424. That's HUNK to 42424.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in and add your 2 cents to the show. Of course, comments coming in online through the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And, a lot of comments coming in there and a lot of different subjects as well, including some related to what we're talking about today, including some of the big news and what we're going to be seeing in the courtroom involving the district attorney's office for El Paso. Very interesting circumstance there, and one of the more unique ways that attempted removal from office can be, well, attempted. But, of course, if you want to call in the show, that number to do so as well is 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM is the number to call there. And a lot more calls we're getting to there. And again, if you want to get on the line, come in the middle of the segment, you might get popped up live. So just stay Johnny on the spot there. So on the line with us right now, we do have Eric on the east side with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yes, this is Eric. I comment a lot on your Facebook page show. I wanted to comment. 3 of your callers, including yourself yesterday, promoted some really harmful biases and forms of bigotry that are common among conservatives, and especially Christian conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were promoting the idea that somehow non-Christians or secular people have some type of hole inside of them that they need to be filled, or that they were more prone to being corrupted by, or more prone to being immoral.
I just got to say right off the bat here, given how much that you talk about straw manning or misrepresenting arguments here, talking about the fact that if you have a lack of, like, say, moral influence, say, from the church, or it's waning, that there's going to be something that needs to replace it. So you have to find your morals somewhere. If you're taking that as an anti-non-Christian statement, I don't really know what to tell you here. It sounds like you're maybe wearing the shoe that fits. I don't know.
Oh, no, absolutely not. You were trying to sweep. You guys were trying to sweep under right-wing terrorism under the rug. You guys were trying to associate the lack of religion to the rise of mass shootings and the attack on Paul Pelosi.
Okay, okay. Let's try to break this down here for a second. Again, I'd like to think I choose my words decently carefully, and what I said is that you need to find your morals somewhere, because if you're just left adrift, you're going to be susceptible to, whatever the winds that may be. And you're calling that terrorism, just to make sure I'm being perfectly clear with you here, or supporting terrorism. Is that right?
No, the three callers and yourself were associating, or the callers that you were going along with, I should say, we're saying that the lack of religion in schools and stuff is causing mass shootings. And then that segued into your conversation about morality having to be filled by somewhere. But I should point out that Christian conservatives, they get their values from Fox News, not from religion or any type of Christian beliefs, because they openly oppose, helping immigrants, the poor, their neighbors, those different from them. They judge. These values don't come from Christianity. They come from right-wing media and conservative talk radio hosts.
Okay, so going into talking about responding to evidence and what people said, there were people literally responding to you on that point saying, I do donate to these individual organizations. I can still disagree with policy on how it's being dealt with officially, saying they would rather essentially do their own efforts to help thy neighbor if you're going with that concept of it as opposed to listening to anything else. And frankly, this obsession with facts, not in evidence, is the best way I can put it here, or at least concisely anyway, of what other shows are saying related to this. If you haven't heard on this show, it's not really what we're talking about here, as much as you're also kind of obsessed with Alex Jones that way. I would defy you to bring up something that Alex Jones has mentioned here that I've mentioned on air and anywhere near the same fashion here. So I guess I got to say, if you're bringing in your other baggage with other issues with people in other arenas, maybe take those to those arenas, because we're going to keep talking about what the local issues are here is kind of our focus here.
Three of your callers, that's who I'm talking about. And you went along with their narrative that there's some type of hole or that secular people are more prone to being corrupted, that they have to fill themselves up with something. Like secular people, atheists and agnostic atheists, they're just like every other human being. They get their values from their environment, what their parents tell them, what's good and bad, from media, from the environment, just like everyone else.
Which you may recognize as what I said, that you need to raise your kids with what other values are important to you. So talking about passing along values, but if you're just expecting to, well, this influence has waned. I mean, previously churches were pretty powerful. That much throughout history is kind of undeniable as a fact here. I mean, them literally operating as almost forms of government in their own right. I mean, the papal state still exists, for example, but beyond that, I said, wherever you get your morals, make sure you're passing them along and not allowing it to be on the whims there. So again, if you're taking this as therefore anti-non-Christian here, I got to say, my dude, that is more your baggage than anything else here, because I'm just saying, please be a moral and considerate person wherever you get it, whether it be religion or not. So again, if you're just mad about the fact that people could get morals from I guess I don't really understand what we're talking about here. And more comments coming on there. So yeah, there were callers that were concerned about this, and I was responding to their concerns about, I mean, yeah, there's a refrain that comes up about, God taken out of schools, which is not something I've personally experienced here. Sure, there may not be forced prayer, which I would be opposed to anyway, but let me just put it to you this way, that when you start dealing with what we're actually talking about here and stop bringing in other baggage you got with other programs here, you're probably going to find yourself having a better discussion here, because we have serious things that we want to get to here, and I'm going to keep being focused on. But if you're not wanting to do that, we're going to go ahead and move on. So thanks for the point in the call for what it's worth there. Let's get to another call on the line here. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, I'll tell you one thing that affects El Pasoans in every community is guns. And all these gun nuts running around shooting folks in schools, kids in schools. Texas is number one in that. Isn't that great? And also number one in forcible rapes. And yet Greg Abutt goes out there and tells people he's keeping Texans safe. Well, tell it to the kids, parents from Uvalde. How safe was that for them, And it's because of this gun thing. Now, there's always been nutty people. And there will always be nutty people, violent people, like the ones who attacked the Capitol, like the guy who attacked Speaker Pelosi's husband. And there's always people that are inciting them, using these morons and violent people to their ends. They're called dictators, demagogues. They've always been around, too. There's nothing new about that. And it's very, very sad that that's what's going on. And so, so they have to have, the Republicans are willing to sacrifice America's kids in their schools over the altar of the gun, so that everybody can have their guns. Now, most Democrats and most liberals, we're not against all guns for everybody. I think people should be able to own a gun for their home, for safety of their home. Maybe even they can have a shotgun, a pistol, but you don't need an AR-15, and you certainly don't need a whole bunch of them and a whole bunch of ammo. That's a nutty thing. And then all it takes is a nutty leader who uses his position and the words and the impact that those kind of words from the President of the United States could have on these nutty people who are armed to the teeth.
I just got to say, when you're connecting these disparate ideas here of school shootings to those that own guns here, again, I can't have exact stats that I'm pointing to here, but given okay, you want to talk about Uvalde here, we're not talking about someone that was longtime gun owner and just had a really bad day or something like that. We're talking about a seriously twisted individual who probably should have been caught by the system better, but we're really talking about access to it and not necessarily the existence of it. I mean, we keep coming with this argument about what is dangerous, and one of the many reasons I'm very glad that we have a representative democracy, which has, of course, majority rule and minority rights, is that we're not going to be limited by what you tell me is allowable for me on a given day here, and that should work that way in a lot more ways than just this. But more specifically, we want to talk about AR-15s then, or assault rifles in general, or modern sporting rifles, as is not the more popular term, but the more accurate one here, because you want to talk about assault rifles, we're talking about select fire magazine removable intermediate caliber weapons. But more specific than that, if we're talking about the number of them, the danger, the inherent danger that just by their mere existence cause such danger here, this country wouldn't exist any longer, because there's an estimated 20 million of these in these countries. We're not talking about a one-off, someone with a Barrett 50 cal strutting around. I mean, that's a $10,000, probably more with inflation now, firearm here that definitely can do some damage, and not a whole lot of those here. We're talking about something that probably someone in your neighborhood has, and yet the fact of the matter is that, well, we're still talking here, so obviously it hasn't come looking for you or anything like that, these sentient firearms we're talking about here, because no, it's entirely based on the will of the user. So I'm not going to say that mental health is the only issue here. Excess is definitely an issue, because any reasonable firearm owner I talk with, I don't think is saying that, well, if someone slips through the cracks of the system here, that's just fine with me. No, it hurts us every time that someone using a platform that we are interested in, take as a hobby, take maybe hunting, or take for business use. I mean, there are people in the security industry, people who go and do services for our military overseas that are familiar with and use these things. I've taken armorer's classes alongside some of them, including for local police departments. The fact of the matter is, yeah, this hurts. This hurts us anytime that something that we use and we value as part of our rights in this country is used for such an evil purpose. And the purpose here is evil, but to complete the implement with how it is used is, well, popular, but not accurate. Because the fact of the matter is that if we were talking about what would actually reduce these shootings, saying that, well, the people who have done literally nothing wrong in their lives, statistically speaking, at least with the firearms, are the real problem here, is missing the point, in my estimation, and not focusing on what the actual point is, like laws that would have effects on those days, background checks, waiting periods. Yes, I frankly would be in favor of waiting periods, because the idea of someone needing a gun immediately, if you need it immediately, you need to maybe make some better life choices, or look at getting some law enforcement involved with it here, because it's anyone that is choosing to incite violence. Yeah, I've got my own issues with them, but saying therefore it could be used for wrong, therefore no one can have it, just doesn't quite fit in my estimation here. So I appreciate the point and the call for what it's worth here. We got to move on and take that next break now. So do appreciate it. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls on the line and more points there. The number to call if you want to get on the line here, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 Traffic all day.
On your El Paso freeways, 54 Patriot southbound after Diana Drive, there's a multi-vehicle accident. All vehicles are off to the right shoulder, though. Minor backup between Diana Drive and Hondo Pass. I-10 eastbound between Vinton and Arcraft, that's a 23-minute delay. A crash is blocking the right lane, Gateway East at Reynolds, and an accident Lee Trevino northbound at Treywood. Try Loma Land or Montwood instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've seen another beautiful day again, but as we get into tonight, we will have another similar night to last night with temperatures dropping back to the 40s near 50 with light winds. As for your Wednesday, we start to transition, so we'll see a little more wind, but we're staying dry and warm. It's really not until Thursday and Friday when we'll see some bigger changes with our Pacific storm. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the latest forecast.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The twin brothers accused of shooting and killing a Mexican migrant near Sierra Blanca have both bonded out of jail. According to the Hudspeth County Sheriff's Department, Michael and Mark Shepard posted their bail yesterday. The twin brothers allegedly opened fire on a group of migrants in Sierra Blanca on September 27th. The Shepards claimed to have thought they were shooting at wild hogs. One migrant died, another was wounded. The Shepards are charged with manslaughter. A man dressed in a Spider-Man costume climbed a high-rise in central El Paso. The video was recorded yesterday from the point of view of the man climbing the tower, the Chelsea Tower, which is owned by the Housing Authority of El Paso. Footage of yesterday's stunt was posted onto YouTube. El Paso police say that up to now, no reports have been filed. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beautiful, top quality, long-lasting dental implants as low as $19.95 at 1995implants.com. The El Paso Dental Office, where implants are affordable. Other places charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, up to $6,000 per tooth. Please do not pay that much. Please do come to 1995implants.com, where our price is much lower, as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown, which many other places charge extra for. Plus, at 1995implants.com, we also offer a free consultation, free standard x-rays, and very convenient payment options. Now's the time to get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, or loose, old, wobbly dentures and get the beautiful new smile that you want at a very affordable price. 1995implants.com. For more information, see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, governor.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you also very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And the most accurate statement today, James Radcliffe, Andrew likes to argue or debate here. It's been pretty defining of my career here. I went to the national competition back in high school a couple of times, but that's neither here nor there, nor coming from any kind of meetings like that. A lot of commentary. Those dropping those likes and reacts, simplest way I can do this at this point. We do appreciate the support for having the conversation. Barbara Given Bainey, Calvin Williams, Fred Marquez, Stephen Christopher, Alex Campos, Ida Beza Gardner, Robert Haynes, Glenn Stewart, Robbie Flores, James Holmes, Richard Jensig, Monica Cervantes, and Angel Rueda. But phone lines open now as well, so let's dive back into those for squeezing what we can for the show here. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. I know this topic is more suited for Friday, but I must respond to Comrade Raul.
Okay.
Yes. He seems to want to limit an individual's right to own a firearm. It's like I said before, people who say, no, you should have an AR-15 or you don't need an AR-15. You know what's going to happen next.
I mean, yeah, we've been down this road, the discussion before here. Let me just put it this way. As much as there's also discussion about, to kind of take it further, the reasoning he was putting forth there, the idea that, weapons of war are not permitted here, that is literally the point of the Second Amendment. And that's not just actual argumentation, a hot take I'm trying to make. That is based on Supreme Court decisions. The one that, I had it up here and I'm forgetting it at the moment, but the one that essentially ruled that sawed-off shotguns are NFA items and subject to regulation because they cannot serve a more or less, not a direct quote, but this is the intention, a military purpose. Because that was the idea. As much as, hunting comes up, even self-defense, the entire point of the Second Amendment, the Founding Fathers had not just finished a war against deer. And so the idea of there being this kind of gap in between what is available to civilians in the military, I mean, there's philosophy to be debated there for sure, even though I sometimes recreationally go and look at tanksforsale.com, though it's way out of my budget so far. But point is that people being removed from what is feasible and usable in the modern sense is, well, literally what that law and the entire idea of the amendment is opposed to.
Right. Well, since you touched on the sawed-off shotgun deal, okay, that was the Miller decision, and that was actually
right. Thank you.
Decided by default. Another thing, shotguns were readily used during the First World War, and to some extent, they were even cut down even further to less than 18 inches. You had to get rid of the bayonet lug, but some of the soldiers in the field were actually cutting them down even further. But anyway, yes, another thing I wanted to point out about that deal. Well, once you start saying, no, you can't have this type of weapon, no, you can't have this type of weapon, at what point does it get to where they declare your hunting rifle a sniper weapon?
Yeah, and I mean, as much as that has been an idea of what the next line may have been, I have literally seen that put up in places like New York and other places. So there's never it'll stop here. There's always going to be someone willing to push it further, and that's exists in pretty much all realms. There's never okay, this is inviolable and can never be moved again. There's always someone wanting to push that balance of power one way or the other, and that's why there's a lot of those that say shall not be infringed as an inviolable, and therefore there should be no gun laws. I'm not going to agree with that full sentiment there, because there is no right that is not subject to regulation is a further Supreme Court decision. But I will say that the pendulum has swung seemingly very far indeed.
Yes, it can. But in all actuality, in World War I, the Germans were even going to summary execute Allied soldiers caught with shotguns. Here they were using poison gas, but they thought the shotgun was a very cruel weapon.
Yep, and they appealed to Geneva and those kind of concepts there as well. So, I mean, as much as the laws of war is a somewhat laughable philosophic concept here, it's mostly about what can we all agree on that the consequences of violating would be too severe.
True. Well, the idea is if you're going to have effective crime control, number one, it starts in the high chair. Number two, you have to enforce the laws that are on the books. And the other point he said was, you don't need to have all this ammo. Well, ammo is in short supply at times. Ammo is also getting very expensive. That's why people stockpile it, and it's also cheaper to buy it in bulk.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that before in the past here for training purposes and such here, and I have every time I go by down the gun store aisle and see the prices there, I shed a quiet tear to myself.
Yes, well, I mean, when I go out to the range, I'll expend 300-400 rounds in about 2 hours, so that can get pricey. And also, yes, I agree there are people that should not have guns. Two of them are one, John Fetterman, since he likes to be reckless and pointed at people. Number two, Alec Baldwin. We know we know that story.
Yep, the Rust movie situation, which I still can't believe that he said what he said about, I didn't do anything, I just released the hammer, which is how it's ignorance is his part that I think some things are getting settled there, so it may not have come to bite him back in court like it may have, but may have up some settlement numbers from anyone who understood the mechanics there and knew that, yeah, he admitted essentially, in my mind, to mishandling the firearm. Even if he didn't pull the trigger, yeah, they can still go off even if you didn't pull the trigger. That's part of the features of why we don't have guns that do that anymore, but a historical anyway, getting me started on another subject there.
Understood. Anyway, I turn the mic over to you, and you have a good afternoon.
You too as well. Appreciate the point on the call. Have a good one there as well.
Thank you, Andrew.
I get to some more calls here before we hit that next break here. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
You cannot be serious. Cheap shot by awful Andrew. But I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
I want to talk about denigration. The denigration of our society in the United States of America. It's a pervasive, evil disconnect by society that has such evil thoughts, such disconnect thought process that they can't come together and believe that, wait a minute, we as a country have differences, and let's talk about it. No, we got to go out there and then have all these awful thought processes about we want to kill this person, we want to rip this person, we want to hang this person, and it's principally on the conservative kook side. Now, I don't know how this thing ends, Andrew, but I want to tell you something, everybody else out there, the Southwest border region, this does not end well. Now, that's it. That one point. Second point, I want to talk about inflation.
Sure.
Okay, it's happened. I mentioned this to you before. I've gone through at least 11 of these cycles, right? Right now, currently, right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't care what your political persuasion is, but they're doing the right thing. If the Republicans become in power, the first thing they're going to do is what they did the last time in 2016 or 19, whatever it was, is give another $1 trillion tax break to the fat cats. And that right there should tell you something, because the way it works, ladies and gentlemen, is the rulers of a society make the rules monetarily for their benefit. Anything that spins off of that by some little hook or crook was an unintended consequence. So just think about that. That's my opening rant.
I mean, I get what you're saying here, and I mean, there is a fair amount of criticism to go to, particularly both sides of the aisle, on spending when they are in power and then decrying spending when they're out of power here. And if that's not actually solved as a cycle, we got other issues to come with here. But to your first point initially, anyone calling for violence, saying there is no political solution, is never going to have a good time on this show, but is also going to find I'm going to find myself entirely opposed to them regardless of it. As much as I am encouraging and encourage more reasonably and responsibly armed Americans to be out there, for the use that for anything besides essentially life or death, and I don't mean rhetorically, I mean literally, is unconscionable. Because if you're truly wanting to fight the enemies of a country here, join the military. Because if you're going and mess around with your buddies in the woods or the desert or the high woods you got around here, no, all you're doing is messing around. That's it. If you're truly wanting to, you take an oath and do those kind of things, then do that. But those thinking, frankly, the either side is taking very different kind of both left wing and right wing. It comes to the potential idea for conflict, where, I mean, right wing has been very focused on the arms themselves, obviously, gun culture, those kind of things are identifiably that way for the most part, not entirely, I would argue, but the logistics side, that's what left wing extremists have been much more focused on the networking and what it takes to actually maintain something. I mean, there's whole thoughts, schools of thoughts out there on what does it take to actually support a warfighter, so to speak. And that in a lot of places, in a lot of countries, it's about 20 to 1. It takes 20 people doing different jobs to support one person at the front, so to speak. Whereas if you get really good at it, you might get down to like 14, maybe even 10 if you're just spot on with the logistics per. But that's still a 10 to 1 disparity of what actually takes to put someone in the field, and anyone thinking that they're just going to be able to manage that on their own and any kind of conflict is frankly dreaming. And moreover, probably if they ever are given reason or cause to act on that, dangerous. And someone, again, I'm going to find myself opposed to, because that's the kind of person who will mess around and find out. So just roundly, resoundingly decrying and denouncing that in any way, shape, or form, because anyone who wants to say that, we'll get our way through force of arms is an idiot, just flat out here. But again, to your larger point there about, what we're actually dealing with and, seeing in this country here, I don't think we're anywhere near that, even if I do think it will take a number of people making the decision to step away from the edge for that to be not the case.
Well, absolutely 100%. I love your commentary, as I always say. But there needs to be a reset on the general societal thought process here. This United States, the way we set our government up, self-rule, you cannot continue this kind of thing and expect our type of government to succeed. This is absolutely nuts. And by the way, before I finally end, hey, Ben, what Rex said, never forget it. Ben, never forget. Have a good day, Andrew.
You too as well. Thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right.
We're going to try to squeeze in one more quick one here, and I know quick might not be your intention here, but we got a little bit of time left here. We do have Marco over in Central. Marco, we got a couple of minutes here.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Doing all right there. Briefly, what's on your mind?
Man, they're accusing me of being a jihadist today. Jesus. Well, join the club, brother. We're in good company. So let me start with this. I hear these people, the morality, the guns. What is this? Raul needs to go to. I shouldn't say you should go to school, because this is what they'll teach him. The fact of the matter is, when you spend money, you inflate the cash. And so the argument is always from the progressive side. Oh, you're going to give a tax break. How are you going to pay for it? Well, see, they assume you're going to pay for the tax break because you're cutting benefits somewhere else. So they want you to pay for it. So we as conservatives should be like, well, we're not going to pay for it. We're going to cut taxes, and then we're going to start to cut the budget the way normal people do. You expect us to cut taxes and then to pay for your endeavors. That's the lie. It's manipulation of words, It's not, we're not in a recession. We're in a temporary inflation hike or whatever baloney they want to use. So I'm curious here, what excuse they're going to use. And we're at the end. A couple of weeks, you know what? Let me preface this with you, because we've been speaking for a while now.
Sure.
Okay. I've made claims about the vaccines. And for the most part, I've been right. I said that they induce myocarditis, that there was some questions around the mRNA technology. I always pointed towards people that could verify, like Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Peter Bregan, people of this nature. So whenever I make a statement, I don't make a blanket statement and just hope that if things go my way. I see the way things are turning. A couple of weeks ago, I made a mention to you that we're about to run out of diesel.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's the big thing but people don't realize the West is about to run out of diesel. And it's kind of like the meteor that's about to hit Earth, and we're all just kind of like, I think we'll be fine. I want people to know that when we run out of diesel, 13 days later, we're going to be in a societal change. The way that I always say we should reform society, we're going to reform society, whether people recognize this or no. Your life is about to have a 9/11 moment. It's that big. It's going to be as if an asteroid hit the Earth, because it's like hyperinflation. One day, boom, and it's going to trigger hyperinflation. And it's going to spiral in ways that's going to boggle your mind. And be careful, Andrew, what you say as far as finances, as far as the economy goes, because they're going to start to come after. This is why Alex Jones and his case was so important, because they want to shut people down with free speech. This is why they're coming after Elon Musk. If you free the platform and bring President Trump back and Alex Jones, we're going to come after you. They are afraid of opposing viewpoints. And I want everybody to understand one thing about Alex Jones. Regardless if you like him or not, he is a journalist. He is a renowned journalist. Regardless of what you think of his actions, regardless of what you think of his hyperbole, he put out one of the most sought-after books in history right now with The Great Reset. So you can have your opinions about Alex Jones, but one thing is true, is that when he gets it right, he gets it damn right. And this is why everybody's looking out and saying, look at what Alex Jones said back then. He's actually right. Well, I wish he would have been the tinfoil hat man, because at least we wouldn't be in the problems that we are today. And unfortunately, the dude with a tinfoil hat, well, I'd rather have a tinfoil hat than blinders.
I mean, Alex Jones, you're of course entitled to your opinion on him. Let's just say you're not going to see me questioning the families who have lost children here. That's not something we're going to do here. But let me say this. I mean, yeah, the whole diesel supply and the idea of it, I guess there may be a slight misconception out there about it. The whole idea that we have that the 25-day number that has been put forth is not that once their 25 days are up and the diesel is gone. It's kind of like the food banks here when it's been talked about being down to a month's supply. It's like a bathtub where sure there's a drain going out, and if the drain is emptying faster than it can be filled up, it's a problem here, but there's still constant also refilling of the supply. There are certainly issues here, and if it were to come that there were even further disruptions, that's what the real problem is with vulnerability. It breeds more vulnerability, and if you're not dealing with it, that starts being real issues here. But let's just say keep an eye on it, and if we start deal with serious things, I've been saying maybe batten down the hatches, make sure you're tied up well in your personal supplies for a couple of years now, and I will still reiterate that, because making sure you can handle whatever happens in your own life, you have to have your house in order before you can help anyone else here. So I got to go ahead and take that next break right now, and coming out of this break, I think we'll have to pretty much close out the show, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso, well, probably end of the show here, so back in a minute if we can.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Patriot southbound at Diana Drive, there's a rollover accident involving multiple vehicles. The right lane is blocked. Watch for a minor backup up to Trans Mountain. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Montwood, an accident. Stop and go on the 10 eastbound with 31-minute delays. And it's all bumper to bumper, Vinton down to Artcraft. I-10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot, it's a 9-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
Integrity, proven experience, hard work, passion. These are the qualities we get by keeping Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals. He graduated in the top 10% of his law school class, practiced law 29 years in El Paso before coming to the 8th Court, where he has been for the last 8 years. The only candidate in this race who is board certified in civil appellate law, a principled conservative who thoroughly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
That is going to do it for us for the show here today. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. More interviews on City Council coming up for you, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, super out of time. See you again tomorrow here on Talk El Paso. So, in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. Have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Live from the KTSM
On the
AM
54
690
Patriot
studios,
southbound at
it's
Diana Drive, there is a rollover accident involving multiple vehicles. The right lane is blocked. Watch for a
News
minor
on the
backup
hour
up to
and
Trans
a half.
Mountain. Joe Battle
Traffic
Boulevard
and
northbound
weather
at
all day.
Montwood, an
News
accident.
Radio
Stop and go in the
690
10
is
eastbound with
KTSM
31-minute delays, and it's all bumper to bumper.
iHeart Radio
Brinson down to
station.
Artcraft. I-10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot, it's a 9-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Republicans are leading Democrats in a generic congressional ballot as Election Day is just 1 week away. A Wall Street Journal poll found that 46% of voters would vote for a GOP candidate versus 44% who would vote for a Democrat. Denver officers say one person is dead and several are injured after a shooting on Tuesday. Police have more details on the condition of the victims.
One victim, an adult male, was pronounced deceased at the scene. 4 other individuals, 2 adult males, 2 adult females, were transported to area hospitals. At this point, 3 individuals are in critical condition.
It appears the victims were standing on the sidewalk when 3 people got out of their vehicle and began firing at them. The man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband is